Have you ever noticed that the loneliest seasons of your life often arrive right before something inside you begins to change? Not the kind of change that announces itself loudly, but the quiet kind. The kind that happens when the old version of you can no longer survive inside the same patterns, the same fears, the same conversations, the same need to be understood by people who cannot hear the language of your soul. There are moments when isolation does not feel spiritual at all. It feels heavy. It feels like being forgotten. It feels like sending prayers into a silent sky and receiving nothing back but the echo of your own uncertainty. And yet, beneath that silence, something more subtle may be taking place. Your nervous system is slowing down enough to reveal what noise has been hiding. Your heart is beginning to separate true guidance from emotional dependency. Your energy is learning the difference between being alone and being abandoned. In this video, we are going to explore the hidden passage between loneliness and alignment, and how quantum connection with the universe is not about escaping your human pain, but learning how to listen through it. Before we begin, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who may be walking through a silent season without understanding why. And as you listen, ask yourself gently, what if this isolation is not the universe rejecting you, but preparing you to finally hear what has always been waiting beneath the noise? There is a kind of loneliness that does not begin when people leave, but when you realize that the life around you no longer speaks to the person you are becoming. You can still answer messages, still smile in public, still complete your daily tasks, and yet feel as if some deeper part of you has stepped into a quiet room where no one else can follow. This is often the first doorway into alignment. Not because loneliness is romantic, and not because pain is automatically spiritual, but because isolation removes the distractions that once allowed you to avoid the truth of your own inner state. At first, this silence can feel like punishment. The mind begins to ask why support disappeared, why certain relationships feel distant, why the universe seems slower than before, why the signs that once comforted you now feel hidden behind a wall of uncertainty. But what feels like spiritual absence may actually be energetic separation. You are being separated from old emotional agreements, from the habit of measuring your worth through attention, from the reflex of asking the outside world to confirm what your soul already knows, but has been afraid to trust. This is where many people misunderstand the lonely season. They assume that if they feel alone, they must be off path. They believe that alignment should feel exciting, bright, and immediately reassuring. But true alignment often begins with disorientation, because the nervous system is no longer being fed by familiar noise. The conversations that once distracted you lose their flavor. The places that once gave you comfort begin to feel too small. The version of you that survived by adapting, pleasing, explaining, and waiting to be chosen starts to feel exhausted. And in that exhaustion, something honest begins to rise. Joe Dispenza often speaks about the body becoming conditioned to familiar emotions, as if the past keeps living inside the nervous system. In simple terms, your body can become addicted to the emotional climate you have known for years, even if that climate is painful. Worry can feel normal. Waiting can feel normal. Rejection can feel familiar enough to be mistaken for identity. So when life becomes quiet, the body may panic, not because something is wrong, but because the old emotional pattern has lost its usual stimulation. The silence is not empty. It is exposing what was running you. This is why solitude can feel so uncomfortable before it becomes sacred. Without constant external input, you begin to hear the hidden sentences you have carried for years. Maybe one of them says, "I am only valuable when someone needs me." Another says, "If no one supports me, I must be failing." Another whispers, "If the universe loved me, I would already have proof." These thoughts are not commands from the universe. They are emotional recordings. They are echoes from moments when you felt unseen, unsafe, or unchosen. And the lonely season brings them forward not to destroy you, but to make them visible. Think of muddy water in a glass. While it is being shaken, there is no clarity. Everything looks dense, confused, and impossible to separate. But when the glass is placed down and left undisturbed, the sediment slowly begins to settle. The water does not become clear because someone forced it to. It becomes clear because movement stopped long enough for separation to happen naturally. This is what spiritual isolation can do inside you. It allows the emotional sediment to settle. It shows you what is yours, what was inherited, what was absorbed, and what no longer belongs to your future. The universe does not always guide through sudden miracles. Sometimes it guides by making certain distractions unbearable. It allows the old noise to become too loud, the old roles too tight, the old attachments too costly, not as cruelty, but as correction. The lonely season becomes a threshold where your energy begins to withdraw from what has been draining it. You may not yet know where you are going, but you can feel where you can no longer remain. And this is the first sign of alignment. Not certainty, but honesty. The moment you stop pretending that the old life still fits, your connection with the universe becomes less about asking for rescue and more about recognizing resonance. You begin to understand that loneliness is not always the absence of love. Sometimes it is the sacred space where false belonging dissolves, so that a deeper belonging can finally begin. The most difficult part of spiritual loneliness is not the silence itself, but the way silence removes every performance you use to hide behind. When there is no applause, no constant reassurance, no one asking you to explain your dreams, and no one validating your direction, you meet the raw condition of your inner world. This is where many people discover something uncomfortable. They were not only seeking connection with the universe, they were also seeking permission from others to believe in that connection. This is not a failure. It is a human wound. Most people learn very early to measure safety through response. A message answered quickly feels like value. Agreement feels like protection. Being understood feels like proof that the path is real. So when life becomes quiet, the body can interpret silence as rejection. The mind begins searching for evidence that something has gone wrong. It revisits old conversations, compares timelines, watches other people moving forward, and secretly wonders why the universe seems to be speaking clearly to everyone else except you. But alignment cannot be built on emotional dependency. A person can repeat beautiful affirmations, light candles, meditate, visualize, and speak about divine timing, while still carrying a desperate need for the outside world to confirm their worth. And that desperation creates inner dissonance. The conscious mind says, "I trust the universe," but the emotional body says, "I am terrified that nothing is coming." The mouth speaks abundance, but the nervous system lives in survival. The intention points forward, but the identity keeps returning to old evidence of abandonment. This is why the lonely season becomes so revealing. It exposes the gap between what you say you believe and what your body has learned to expect. Joe Dispenza describes this in a practical way when he teaches that thoughts and emotions create a familiar state of being. If your body has memorized disappointment, it may keep preparing for disappointment, even when your mind is trying to imagine a new future. This does not mean you are broken. It means that your inner system is asking to be retrained through coherence, not forced through denial. There is a difference between authentic spiritual connection and using spirituality to escape discomfort. Authentic connection makes you more honest, more present, and more responsible for your energy. Escape makes you chase signs because stillness feels unbearable. Escape makes you turn every delay into a cosmic test, every silence into a punishment, every uncomfortable emotion into something that must be fixed immediately. But true connection does not rush to cover the wound with mystical language. It sits beside the wound long enough to understand what it has been protecting. Imagine walking into an old house after everyone has left. At first, the emptiness feels unsettling. Then, little by little, you begin to hear what was always there. The floorboards shifting, the wind touching the windows, the faint sound of water moving through hidden pipes. The house was never silent, it was simply drowned out by activity. Your inner life is similar. When the people, noise, and distractions fade, you begin to hear the hidden structure of your own being. You notice where resentment has been stored. You notice where fear has been disguised as logic. You notice where the need to be chosen has quietly shaped your decisions. This is not an easy realization, but it is a sacred one, because the moment you see the pattern, you are no longer completely ruled by it. You can begin to ask whether your prayers are coming from trust or panic, whether your desire for signs is coming from openness or fear, whether your vision is truly aligned with your soul or simply built to prove something to people who once underestimated you. These questions do not weaken manifestation, they purify it. Quantum connection with the universe is not a performance of certainty. It is the gradual return to inner honesty. It is learning to sense when your energy is contracted, when your choices are being made from fear, and when your spirit is asking for stillness before movement. The universe may not always answer through immediate results. Sometimes it answers by showing you the parts of yourself that still confuse validation with love, attention with guidance, and urgency with faith. And once you begin to see this clearly, loneliness changes texture. It is no longer only the ache of being unsupported. It becomes the place where your false dependencies are revealed, where your emotional frequency becomes visible, and where your connection with the universe stops being something you perform outwardly and becomes something you embody quietly. Alignment begins there, in the honest space where you no longer use spirituality to escape yourself, but to finally return to yourself. There comes a moment in the lonely season when the silence stops feeling like a wall and begins to feel like a mirror. At first, you may still call it absence. You may still think the universe has stopped answering, that your prayers have lost their direction, that your inner work is somehow failing, because life has not yet opened the door you expected. But slowly, if you remain present enough to notice, the silence begins to reveal something different. It is not withholding guidance. It is interrupting a pattern. Sometimes what you call delay is actually protection from entering the next chapter with the same old identity. You may be asking for a new life while still carrying the emotional posture of the old one. You may desire peace while remaining loyal to urgency. You may ask for abundance while secretly expecting disappointment. You may want divine direction while still needing every step to feel familiar. The universe, in its quiet wisdom, does not always give movement to a person who is still internally attached to the very pattern they are trying to leave. This is why isolation can feel like a symbolic death, not a physical ending, but the death of the version of you that survived by being understood, approved, needed, and constantly reassured. That version may have protected you for years. It helped you belong in rooms where your spirit had to shrink. It helped you avoid rejection by becoming useful. It helped you feel safe by reading every change in someone else's tone, every silence, every withdrawal, every sign of possible abandonment. But what once protected you can eventually imprison you. In the quiet, this old self begins to lose its power. There are fewer distractions to feed it, fewer conversations to hide inside, fewer urgent tasks to make you forget the deeper hunger of your soul. And because of that, the mind often becomes restless. It reaches for stimulation. It wants the phone, the message, the noise, the prediction, the next sign, the next answer. Not always because these things are meaningful, but because they keep you from feeling the emptiness underneath. Modern life has trained many people to confuse stimulation with guidance. A sudden notification feels like movement, a new video feels like revelation, a quick emotional high feels like alignment. But the soul does not always speak through intensity. Often, it speaks through a quiet knowing that cannot compete with constant noise. If your attention is always being pulled outward, your intuition becomes like a soft voice in a crowded room. It may still be speaking, but you cannot hear it clearly. Think of yourself as an antenna. When there is too much interference, the signal becomes distorted. You may still receive fragments, but they arrive mixed with fear, urgency, memory, comparison, and imagination. In that state, it becomes difficult to know whether a feeling is intuition or anxiety wearing spiritual clothing. Anxiety demands certainty immediately. Intuition often arrives calmly, even when it points toward courage. Anxiety tightens the body. Intuition may challenge you, but it does not usually humiliate your spirit. Anxiety says, "You must know now." Intuition says, "Become still enough to recognize what is already true." The lonely season teaches this distinction. It gives you the space to observe thoughts without obeying them instantly. When fear rises, you can notice it as a movement in the body rather than a command from destiny. When sadness appears, you can recognize it as a messenger rather than a verdict. When old memories return, you can see them as unfinished emotional weather passing through the nervous system, not proof that your future must repeat your past. A simple inner practice begins here. Name what is present without turning it into your identity. Instead of saying, "I am lost," you may notice, there is confusion moving through me. Instead of saying, I have been abandoned, you may notice there is an old fear of abandonment asking to be seen. This small shift creates space, and space is where alignment begins. Not because the emotion disappears, but because you stop becoming possessed by it. The universe may not become louder in this process. You become quieter. You become less reactive, less addicted to proof, less willing to mistake noise for direction. And in that stillness, the hidden language of life begins to appear again, the conversation that arrives at the right moment, the memory that reveals what still needs healing, the sudden peace around a decision, the closing of a door that once looked like rejection but later feels like mercy. This is the sacred reversal of isolation. The silence that once felt empty becomes intelligent. The delay that once felt cruel becomes precise. The loneliness that once felt like abandonment becomes the chamber where your perception is purified. And through that purification, you begin to understand that the universe was not refusing to speak. It was waiting for you to stop listening through the wound and start listening through the deeper self that was never truly disconnected. Once the lonely season has revealed what was hidden, the next movement is not to wait passively for the universe to repair your life. Alignment is not withdrawal from responsibility. It is the quiet discipline of becoming congruent with the life you say you are ready to receive. This is where many people misunderstand spiritual connection. They imagine it as a constant stream of signs, sudden miracles, and emotional confirmation, but a deeper connection with the universe often appears as a subtle demand for coherence. Your thoughts, your emotions, your choices, your body, and your daily actions begin to ask for the same direction. This does not happen through force. It happens through attention. You begin by noticing your real state, without decorating it. If you are afraid, you do not need to pretend you are fearless. If you feel tired, you do not need to call exhaustion spiritual growth. If you feel uncertain, you do not need to cover uncertainty with dramatic declarations of faith. The first act of alignment is honesty, because the universe cannot be met through a false self. You do not connect more deeply by performing peace. You connect more deeply by becoming present with what is true, and then choosing not to let that truth become a prison. From there, silence becomes less frightening because it becomes useful. You may begin to create small spaces in your day where the world is not allowed to enter first. Before the messages, before the noise, before the responsibilities claim your mind, there is a moment when your inner field is still soft. In that moment, you can place one hand on your chest, breathe slowly, and ask what kind of energy you are about to bring into the day, not as a ritual of perfection, but as a way of remembering that your state is not accidental. It is shaped, protected, and renewed through repeated choices. The body matters in this process more than many people admit. A restless body often produces restless interpretations. A neglected body can turn every spiritual delay into panic, every unanswered prayer into despair, every uncertain moment into proof that nothing is working. This is why alignment must include sleep, food, movement, breath, and the way you treat your nervous system when no one is watching. The universe does not bypass your humanity, it speaks through it. A calmer body becomes a clearer instrument. A protected attention becomes a cleaner channel. A life with fewer unnecessary leaks of energy becomes more capable of receiving subtle direction. As this coherence grows, you begin to recognize the difference between misalignment and true guidance. Misalignment often feels like urgency, comparison, resentment, emotional exhaustion, and the compulsive need to prove your worth. It makes you chase what drains you because part of you still believes struggle is the price of being chosen. Alignment, however, has a different texture. It may still require courage, but it carries a quiet steadiness. It does not always feel easy, but it feels clean. It does not always give instant proof, but it gives inner dignity. You may still walk through uncertainty, but you no longer abandon yourself inside it. Nature understands this better than the human mind. A seed does not look successful while it is underground. To someone impatient, it appears buried, forgotten, inactive. But beneath the soil, a hidden intelligence is working. The shell softens. The root reaches downward before the stem rises upward. Growth begins in the dark, not because darkness is failure, but because certain transformations require protection before visibility. Your lonely season may be similar. What looks like stillness from the outside may be the formation of roots within you. What looks like delay may be the strengthening of a structure that cannot yet be seen. But even the seed participates. It does not argue with the soil, but it also does not refuse to grow. This is the balance of quantum connection and human action. You do not control every outcome, but you do participate in the frequency you sustain. You participate by choosing what you consume, what you repeat, what you tolerate, what you return to, and what you finally release. You participate by cleaning your environment, keeping promises to yourself, protecting your morning, reducing contact with what constantly pulls you into fear, and taking one honest step, even when the entire path has not yet appeared. This is how isolation becomes a temple instead of a prison, not because you escape the world, but because you stop letting the world enter you without permission. You become more selective with your attention, more respectful toward your energy, more aware of the emotional atmosphere you keep recreating. And as you become coherent, the universe no longer feels like a distant force you are begging to answer. It begins to feel like a living intelligence moving with you, responding not only to what you desire, but to who you are becoming through the quiet choices no one else sees. Loneliness before alignment is not a sentence against your life. It is often the quiet room where your soul stops negotiating with everything that kept you divided. In that room, the old need for approval begins to lose its authority. The fear of being unseen starts to soften. The urgency to force answers slowly gives way to a deeper listening, the kind that does not need noise to feel guided. What once felt like absence may have been preparation. What felt like delay may have been protection. What felt like rejection may have been the universe removing you from places, people, and patterns that could not hold the person you were becoming. And this is where connection becomes real, not when life becomes instantly easy, but when you stop abandoning yourself while waiting for life to unfold. Joe Dispenza often reminds us that transformation begins when we stop living from the memorized emotions of the past and begin rehearsing a new state of being. Neville Goddard taught that imagination and inner identity precede outer experience. Together, these ideas point to one truth: your world begins to shift when your inner state stops bowing to old evidence. So let this lonely season become sacred, not because it is painless, but because it is honest. Let it show you what no longer belongs. Let it return you to the part of yourself that was never disconnected from the universe, only buried beneath fear, noise, and waiting. And maybe the question is not, why am I alone? Maybe the deeper question is, who am I becoming now that I no longer need the old world to approve of me? If this message spoke to something quiet inside you, subscribe to this channel and stay connected to this journey of manifestation, spiritual alignment, and inner transformation. Write in the comments what part of this message reached you the most, because your reflection may become the sign someone else needed today. And as this video ends, do not rush away from this feeling. Let the silence after these words become part of the teaching. On the screen, there is another video waiting for you, one that can help you continue this inner passage with more clarity, presence, and trust. Keep watching, because the next message may meet you exactly where your soul is ready to listen.